like I was like, it's
You go for it. I've thrown you in the deep end. You're either going to sink or swim.
awesome. So I just started getting this whole sleeve this year. It's something that like, it's funny because when you talk to a lot of people who like have huge sleeves or like big tattoos, I didn't know this was a thing until I like started really filling this in. But I've heard a few people say similar things to what I just said, what I'm about to say, which is that I didn't realize that like a part of who I thought that I was missing until I started getting this filled in. And now when I look at myself, I feel like I'm actually looking at myself. And before I didn't feel that way, which is such a weird thing because I went 30 years without having this, but it felt like my arm was empty. Like I'd see people and I'd get this like weird empty envy of their selves being like created and filled out. And I didn't get to like represent myself with that the same way. And it was weird, but this, you asked me why I got the frost on the inside. So this whole piece is like the whole top part of it, or my whole arm is basically like the mountains and the woods. And because I'm from the East Coast, I'm from like the Boston area. And I grew up in the White Mountains in New Hampshire, camping, hiking, snowboarding. And that's like a big part of how I like connect with myself is getting into nature and stuff. And when I got out here, I was like, oh, I'm going to be at the beach. This is like this other part of nature that I don't see as much, but like love also. And it's like kind of this like polar thing that like the poles between the two places. But as I've lived in California, I've gotten to like know and understand the land here. And there's like tons of gorgeous mountains and like so many places to explore and so many opportunities to be outside, like even just outside of San Diego. Like I go up to Big Bear a lot. There's tons of awesome hiking up there. The snowboarding's decent. So when I was thinking about how I wanted to like approach my big tattoos, and I've been thinking about this for like a decade, I was like, I kind of want like a yin and a yang thing, like you're light and you're dark. And then I was like, but I don't really feel like I think of myself that way as like a good and a bad or a light and a dark. I like when I think about the two things that pull me, it's like the place I'm from and the place that I am, and like the things in nature that draw me to these places. So the top part is all the mountain ranges and that sort of thing, with the inside with the snowflakes. And then I'm going to start next month my leg, and it's going to be like the beach and like a mermaid and stuff like that.
I like that. I really like that. Like of kind of like tipping the cap to where you're from, and then also where you reside now. Like I relate quite heavily to that. I'm not tatted up, but I mentally relate quite heavily to that.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like tattoos are definitely not for everybody. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, I wonder what, if I never got my first one, would I be on this trajectory that I'm just going to be half covered in tattoos? But I think it's cool too, like in our sport, it's, you get to show it off a lot because you're wearing a sports bra or you're in a singlet. So I don't know, that was a big place. I always felt like I was missing. Tattoos was like when I was weightlifting, I was like, I would love to show off like part of where I'm from or some of my story on my body without talking. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Like that's why I wear a necklace which has the emblem of my city, which is a worker bee, and that's why I wear it, right? Because it kind of like, hey, this is where I'm from type stuff. I'd never say never. Like I was actually booked in, I want to say like just over a year ago. But I never ended up going. I bitched out.
So wait, where are you from originally again? Sorry.
I'm from Manchester.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So cool. Northwest of England.
Nice.
Yeah. Pretty far.
So you were booked to get a tattoo and then you were like, no, I can't do it.
Yeah. So like I always said, like if I'm gonna get one, the first one's always gonna be like the words "Don't Look Back in Anger." It's obviously the song from Oasis. It's quite heavy lyric in it. It's something. It's a song I would play on repeat as a kid, and it would get me through. It's got me through a lot of weird and wonderful times over the years. When I'd literally just sneak onto my mum's boyfriend's computer at the time, and play it because like I couldn't buy a record, you know what I mean? So I was like, oh, okay, cool. That resonates with me so hard. And if I play it now, like it'll still bring a tear to my eye, you know what I mean? So I was like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna get like Don't Look Back in Anger. It's just in a case of when.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you want it to like represent what it means to you a lot, you know?
Mm.
They say that if you have something that you know what you want, like this, obviously I couldn't do that with this, but if you have something that you know that you want, you get it like in a picture, right? So you would get it exactly in the script that you want it in, and you post it somewhere that you look every day, like on your mirror or next to your bed, like right near where you wake up, so that you have to look at it every day and kind of like visualize it. And if by the end of 60 days you still want it and can still visualize it on your body, then like it's meant to be, you have to get it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. It'll be in the same position as my brother's got like a different quote from another band that we used to listen to. Like he's got
Nice.
God Bless the Bland by the Cartooners, but it'd be, I don't know, I've always kind of liked having something from home, a lyric, because Manchester's like massive into bands and arguably the
Yeah,
greatest city of bands, and I would argue that point. Obviously.
yeah.
And yeah, so it would be like, we've kind of got one in the same place. It's just kind of two different lyrics from two different bands. I think that'd be really cool. But again, like I said, it's just kind of marrying up the time, and I'm not really too fussed
Right.
right now. So I'll just keep doing my thing, and then one day I'll kind of wake up, knowing me, I'll wake up and be like, yep, fuck it. I'm just gonna walk in and be like, this is what I want.
The other thing is too, I feel like partially, so I didn't get a tattoo in California for kind of like a decent amount of time after I had gotten here. And I feel like where you get it carries weight. Like I think a big thing about it is like the feeling you have. I'm super weird about like vibes and stuff like that. Like
It's not
I'm one of
weird.
those weird girls that likes like crystals, and like I totally believe in the power of the moon. Like I'm that chick. So I think that like the person you get it from matters a lot. Like the guy that I'm getting this tattoo from, I don't think we'd ever hang out outside of getting like doing like this relationship that I'm sitting there for hours with him getting this tattoo. But I have to like him and think that he's a good person in order for him to impart his art and his ink like into my body. Because I feel like it like any person you interact with, even just this interaction, we're like giving each other a piece of each other, having a conversation like this. And where this is his art, and this is like my ideas and my heart, like going into his art onto my body forever. I feel like I had to like him and like believe in him as a person to some extent for him to like do it. So I feel like it's the same thing for like where you get the tattoo. So if you got that tattoo, I feel like you have to get it at home because it's representative of home.
Yeah, I think so. And I think my brother's gonna want to be there, you know what I mean? And he's probably
Yeah.
gonna want to laugh at me or whatever, simply because he's got like it's like 3/4 sleeve now.
Yeah.
Of just random different pieces. And I remember he got me, the other brother, and like a couple of our mates like symboled as like what are they? Like doves
Yeah.
kind of going up his arm. And it was like the further away from like his shoulder, so i.e. the heart, like the distance we were geographically at the time, and I was the furthest one away, so I'm like closest to his hand. And it was pretty cool because that was like the first one he got, and I was like, holy shit, I'm gonna have to get you somewhere, but I'm like 18 and homeless, so I can't really afford that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But yeah, it was
That's really cool though.
yeah, it was cool. It's cool.
That's dope.
And the B, like I've always thought about getting the fucking symbol too. Like it's kind of transcended. Like Manchester usually gets bombed quite a bit. Like historically with like the IRA and all that type of all that nonsense. So
To a different speaker.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're kind of quiet, but I can hear you.
Yeah, you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, boom. I don't want to like scream the house down because it's quite early.
No, I think I was using my boyfriend's headphones last night, and he just like walked by, and I think he was like putting them in as he walked by.
Oh, that's cool. That's fine. What was I saying? Oh yeah, the symbol's kind of like now transcended Manchester. Like it's on all the public bins, just being like, this is like the symbol of unity. But
Yep.
now it's like, now it's everywhere. It's quite weird. Like I see, like there's a member here at the gym in Christchurch, right? He's from Christchurch, but he's just been over to Manchester, and he's got the B on his arm, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? Like, what? No, hold on a minute. Like that's my city. Like, why is it on your arm? And he's like, oh, well, went over, and it was like the symbol of, like we said, unity, and kind of wearing it around. And I'm like, wow, that's blows my mind.
I can't hear you super well, and I'm kind of bummed about it. I feel like after you connected to that speaker, it was quieter now. I don't know what to do.
That's all right. Is that better?
No. Let me say something.
Hello.
Well, I'll just live with it. It's fine. It'll be fine.
Sure.
Yeah. Actually, hold on. Let me see if I can grab my headphones real quick. Do you mind?
Yeah, go for it. No. Go for it.
Okay.
Tim, give us like 2 minutes. 2 minutes. If you want to fast forward 2 minutes, then that sound.
Can you hear me now?
Yep. In fact, that's better.
All right, cool. All right, awesome. That's way better.
Oh, boom. I like this shit. Everything's on the fly. Like I had Joe from Olympiade on the other week. Well, no, the week.
Oh, yeah.
It was like a few months ago, right? And he literally orders Papa John's midway through the conversation, and then like turns the screen on, right? And I'm having a conversation with the delivery guy. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Like, yeah, this is the way to do it. Like, it's just a fucking conversation rather than sit down. I'm going to ask you 21 questions and drill you with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I was like, I was obviously super interested, and I didn't realize before you reached out to me that I had, because I follow Madison Pennell, so I had listened to it because she posted it when she did it. So I just like put it on and listened to it, and I didn't even like make the connection until you sent me the link, and I was like scrolling through and I found it. I was like, oh my God, I've listened to this before. That's crazy. What made you reach out to me? Because seriously, you have like a stacked list. Like it's super cool, all the people you've talked to, and there's like tons of people I follow or I'm a fan of. And when you reached out to me, I was like, why the hell is he asking me?
No. See, I'm very grateful for the people I've had a conversation with, right? And like it said, I started off with literally talking to myself, and stick it on the internet, which is a very weird thing to do. But I resonate with people, right? Like I'll kind of keep an eye on people, like what they do, what they post, and I'm like, all right, well, I'd like to have a conversation. Like, would I, if we bump into each other in a coffee shop, would I be like, oh, have you got like 15 minutes? And like, we just shoot the shit over a coffee and then like kind of part ways. Like, well, yeah. I was like, cool. Well, I'm probably never going to get the option to do that simply because the world shat itself on lockdown and people are on the other side of the world, right? So I'm like, cool, let's like connect and have a conversation. Like,
for sure.
I like, the thing is I'm very aware of my own limitations, and how am I supposed to know how the world works and how other people think if I don't talk to them? So I like hearing different stories. I think the life is all about stories, right? And I want to be able to, like you said as well, like I'm a very spiritual dude. I'm not really got into the whole crystal thing. Although I was given a crystal not long ago, and I've still got it. I didn't just.
Which one?
Just, I have a clue. It looks like a rock to me. You know what I mean? It's a little bit shiny, but massively with the moon. The moon fucks me. Like seriously
Yeah.
like fucks me up. If it's a full moon, like I am in a really, really bad position mentally.
You should try to like change. And I mean, this is like a whole the I'm glad that you kind of touched on that, because I feel like when I say that I like believe in the moon's power, people are like, oh, you're just one of those weird. But like, if you really break it down, you got to think about it. Believing in the moon's power, I don't think that the moon is like our creator and our all being. I think that it's just a very powerful thing that we don't, in our everyday lives, give enough credit to how much it affects us. And I think taking a moment to recognize its power in moments like the full moon or in a new moon, or when like there's just different things changing, it changes how you live your life. So like, people think it's weird when you say like, oh yeah, I believe in the power of the moon, but it's like, you do too. Like, it's how we measure time. It's how women go through their period cycle. It's like how there's gravity and waves and things like that. Like, it's literally science that we use every single day that we don't recognize that's how we're basing it off of, because we're just so caught up in the day to day. But what I felt something similar to you for years. Like, I would get kind of low or like weird, and like I said to you, I've struggled with anxiety and depression for my entire life. So I'm constantly trying to manage that and understand where those things come from. And I kind of kept a diary for a while of like, this is the day I felt like this, and this was what was going on that day. So I could kind of see if there was some data pattern that I could recognize in order to help myself manage it better. And statistically, the rest of the world feels the same way on the full moon, because there's more crime on a full moon. There's a higher rate of injury and violence on a full moon. The ERs are fuller on a full moon, and that's things across the world. That's not just where I sit or like where I've been. So I try to take the time of the full moon to recognize like, this is a shift in power, and this is a shift in some sort of thing that like is beyond us, that we don't really understand why it's doing this. So I try to use that as like a more spiritual day, and I'll do like cleansing type things for myself. Like, I'll clean my whole room, and I'll do like one extra thing, like, oh, I'm going to get rid of a bunch of stuff this day, or like, I'm going to spend the day like focusing on something specific. And I try to keep up with like whatever the pattern is. So like, there's some things related to astrology that go on with the moon as well. And I don't fully buy into astrology in a sense of like, I'm a Cancer, so this is exactly how I'm going to be. But I think that, again, there's a reason it exists. And there's a reason that like the first scientists that were like looking up at the stars picked out the patterns that do exist, and there's a reason that it's tied to our birth dates and stuff. So there has to be something behind it that's pushing us to feel certain ways at certain times of the year. So I just use whatever phase the moon's in, or whatever, like if it's the super moon in Leo or whatever, you know what I mean? Like that sort of thing. And I look at like, what are the shifts in the universe at that time, or what are the shifts in other people at that time? And I try to like set my own intentions of this next month or this next time frame during that time. If you kind of use it like, instead of going into it being like waiting for it to happen and letting it attack you with like depression and anxiety, and you take it as like this is going to be a hard mental moment, so I'm going to take it and use it and like harness the power of it and turn it around and use it for something positive, that has helped me a lot.
No, I understand that.
And
I understand that totally. Like, I'm
yeah,
a writer too, right? So like,
right.
I'll whenever things get a little bit rough mentally, it usually sidelines me, and I sit down and think a lot. And you can argue that it's beautiful simply because I can get a lot of things out of my head in those times, and I can write a lot of stuff down, and I'm actually very productive, rather than sat down and wickedly suicidal or whatever. You're like, no, let's like
Right.
start jotting things down and like figure out this game that we're playing called life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I harness that energy,
Good.
if you want to call it that, is put it into ink, put it on a paper, and if it's shit, like, it's gonna stay there. But if it's not, then it will be evolved, and over time it will be in a book, and then it'll be in a shelf.
Yeah, I love that.
Thank you.
I feel like that's thing about like artists and poets and people who are good at like being creative. It's, you have to have a dark place, and it
Yep.
sucks that it's like, like the tortured artist thing. But I have a few artist friends that I've bought a ton of their art and stuff like that. And I'm like, I wish I could create something like that out of my pain. I don't have that. I guess I have that with weightlifting, but
Yeah, like that is an art. Like weightlifting is an art form,
yeah.
like the snatch can only ever be described as beautiful once done correct, right? You look at it, you'd be like,
Yeah.
holy shit, like that's beautiful. So yeah, it is an art form.
Yeah. And it's definitely been like my, not, I don't want to call it my crutch, but like the thing that pulls me out of some really, really hard times
Mhm.
over the last 7 years, for sure. Like it's weird how, because I mean, I've played sports my whole life. I've pretty much had a soccer ball in my hand from the second I came out of my mom's womb. Like I played all through college. And then after college, I just like got burnt out and stopped. And I truly, if you had told me like going into college, you're going to love a sport more than you love soccer, I would have been like, no, I'm not. You're insane. This is my life. Like it was everything to me, like my whole life. It was my relationship with my dad. It was my friendships. It was like my reason for choosing the school I went to. And then like, I just found weightlifting after, and it was like, this is totally different. Like you said, it literally does feel like an art form. It's like it's crazy how much like it feels tied to you, and like how much you like pour into it.
Mm.
And it's definitely brought me out of some really difficult times since I've started doing it. Like it's totally created this different side of me and this different person within me that I think after I stopped soccer, I didn't realize how much of my identity is tied to being an athlete. Like I've tied so much of my identity to being an athlete. So when I first moved to San Diego and I wasn't like playing an organized sport, I was like trying to work out, but like I didn't care about it, I guess. Like I was just like, this is stupid. Like I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here. And then my friend was like, well, why don't you try CrossFit? Because I felt so lost, and she saw that. I was like totally not myself. I was like partying a lot, which I love to party. I like being social and stuff like that, but it was way more than like my normal self.
Mhm.
And I didn't have like ties to a community, which I'm a super social person. I think the thing that I love most about social media is that you can like this, like we're connecting. Like how would you have found me if you didn't find me on Instagram? You know what I
Exactly.
mean? So I like to feel like tied into a community and a part of something. And I didn't have that at all. And she was like, why don't you come to my gym? Like it's, there's like a fitness track. It's not like regular CrossFit. It's just like kind of like strength and then a workout. So I did that, and then I liked it. So we kept doing I just kept doing some like CrossFit classes for a couple months. And then I was like, I'm not really into the CrossFit thing. I'm not hating on it. I have a lot of respect for people who keep up with it. I like fell in love with weightlifting. I had one coach that was like really investing in my weightlifting, the weightlifting aspect of CrossFit, and I was getting okay at it, and I really enjoyed that a lot more. I liked how like detail oriented it was and stuff. Um, and then I just like found myself and I flourished. It just became like so much a part of who I was. And I realized that the piece that was missing that whole year that I wasn't doing it when I first got here was that I wasn't playing a sport. And
Mm.
it's so crazy I was an athlete for my whole life, and it took me finding weightlifting to realize that like I could never not play a sport. Like even when my body can't do this anymore, I'll have to do something.
Mhm. Yeah, I think what the modern human being is missing is that form of like two things, right? That form of physical expression and that form of like mental expression. And then like the
Mm-hmm.
synergy between the two of them. And like you either find, like you said, like the tortured artist who's kind of like that wickedly depressed individual, but can create these fantastic things, but never fucking does anything with the body. Or you find
Yeah.
like the complete, I'm an athlete. Yeah, let's go. And like you kind of scratch below the surface and they don't know two for two. They are like, oh, okay. Like your whole identity is working out, sport, weights, whatever the fuck that is. You're like, okay, granted, but you take that away from you and like you've not really got much left. Like I can 110% relate to that. Like I swam and then I played rugby, right? And then I got taken out playing rugby simply because of my neck and head injury, and I had to put my boots up. And then I'm like, well, what the fuck do I do now? And it was like 2 years where I was literally just like, I was known as this like powerhouse on the field. Now literally no one gives a fuck about me. I'm like, cool, what do I do? And it's a really weird realization to come to, because you're like, well, if my entire identity can be stripped away so easily.
Hey, you cut out.
Oh, are you still there?
Alex.
Hello? Hello?
Hey, you cut out.
Sorry, it's like windy as fuck where I am at the moment, so it might cut out.
Oh no, you're good.
What was I saying? Oh yeah, if your entire identity can be stripped away that easily, right? So whether it's an injury, whether it is whatever it is, then is it really that strong? And it kind of made me question myself a lot, because I'm like, well,
it shakes you.
Yeah, I'm like, fuck, I thought I was this, strong individual, but actually you take away that one pillar and I fall down and fall to pieces. So I'm like, cool, there's a lot of work to be done there.
I think you kind of touched on like two pieces of it too that make it difficult in like the modern world. Like at the time that I was struggling with that like identity crisis kind of, I mean, not that I have a huge social media following, but I have something, like there's something that people know me from, right?
Yeah.
And so there's kind of two aspects of it. There's like, who am I from the lens of the people that know me, or what other people think about me, and then what's my purpose now? And I was struggling with what's my purpose now, because fitness unfortunately is not my career. I don't do anything in fitness for a living right now. And I didn't at the time either. So, and I didn't even know what something I would even be interested in. I didn't put that into my life trajectory. It wasn't something I was setting up until very recently. But I was like, what am I doing with my life? Like, what is the thing that drives me, or that like gives me a moral standing and things like that? And especially because I think it took me a few years to realize this, but growing up, like my parents brought me to church, but they weren't like super strict about it. Like they both grew up like super strict Irish Catholic. It just like wasn't their thing. They weren't going to do it to me and my sister. So a lot of where I got my moral standards from was like being on a team. It was like, if you do these certain things, like if you mess up in school and you have to run because you mouthed off to a teacher, the whole team has to run. And it was kind of the thing of like, what's better for the team is better for you, and like that kind of community aspect of things. And just a lot of my coaches imparted like life lessons on me that make me feel like I'm a good person, because those are the things that I learned growing up. And stepping away from that, I was like, where's my arrow now? Like, where do I point what right from wrong is anymore? And then furthermore, like now we live in this world where, and I mean, it wasn't that long ago, but again, it was kind of at the beginning of Instagram and stuff, like being Insta famous and having followers and things. So now if you stepped away now, it's like, if I stopped weightlifting, why would people even follow me? First of all, I don't know why people follow me half the time. Anyway, I'm like a very mediocre weightlifter, but what would they care about my life for? Like, I don't share like a lot of my personal life on my platform. I literally basically just share my weightlifting journey and like some of traveling and a little bit of my struggles with mental health, like here and there. So I don't know what like that part of my identity would be. And that's really scary to think about. Like, what if something took me out and I couldn't lift, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Something I think about quite regularly, right, is every person you meet sees a different version of yourself. So you see a different version of me and I see a different version of you. And then the next person would see a different version of you, and the next person would see a different one. And the only person that sees who you truly are is yourself. Because there's that little part of yourself, right, that you keep that you keep only for you because you're scared, or it's a personal connection, or whatever the fuck, right? Because I'm never going to get the intrinsic feelings you get, and vice versa. So how am I
Mhm.
supposed to connect with that? Well, you're not. You can empathize with it, but it's always going to get slightly lost in translation. And
Yeah.
then and then it changes day to day, right? Like the person you are today is different than yesterday and all that. So I think about that regularly, simply because like I do a lot of things and they're in a lot of different industries and very polar opposites, right? You go in the gym, it's all macho, let's get yoked, all
Let's
that type of shit.
go.
Yeah, let's go. And then it's like, let's sit down and talk about our feelings. And, it's like the polar fucking opposite. And I don't know, like I think about, roles, masks, hats, whatever you want to call it, a lot. I'm like, holy shit, like if we sat down and had a conversation like we're doing now, you're going to
Mhm.
see a lot more masks that I'll play out, rather than you see me in a gym, you'll be like, like this much, like an absolute fraction of the person
Right.
that's in front of you, simply because they're playing a role.
Right. And there's a couple things you said there that are like really interesting. And even again, like it's the same thing like from in the gym when you're just lifting with people for a couple hours a day, or like just catching someone on social media. It's like you're the decider of how much you put out into the world. Like the other day someone hit me up and was like, I wouldn't even know you had a boyfriend. You never post him on your social media, on your Instagram. And I was like, well, I don't know you. So why am I going to share a very personal part of my life with you? First of all. Second of all, there's a lot of people in my life. Like, do you even know I have nieces? I have two nieces that are like my whole world. And I don't post them on social media either, because that's not their decision. Like they can't decide whether or not I'm putting them out to 10,000 people, which is like weird to me. I don't know. I just choose to like only put out this very small part of my life, which is, well, it's a big part of my life, weightlifting, but it is only a fraction of my life. And it's the same thing when you're in the gym. You're like, I'm sharing with you this part of it, like, and maybe we'll be like, how was work, or how's your girlfriend? But like, we're not like you're saying, like getting into any like sort of deep conversation, and you wouldn't know anyone unless you took the time to sit down and like talk to them outside of it.
Mm. And what winds me up personally is it's like oh yeah, you don't share all these like little intricacies of your life. It's like, yeah, it's because you're not fucking asked.
Yeah. And it is weird. Like, I don't want to share my whole life with strangers. I
Well, on
like,
the internet is a weird thing, right? Yeah, that's
yeah.
really yeah.
But two, the other thing is, like you said, you were like, well, we don't sit there and have conversations about our feelings, which that's a big thing to me. I feel like that matters a lot. Like me and my coach actually do sit down a lot and talk about our feelings, because like going into my last weightlifting meet, it was the first time I've ever bombed out snatching. And it was, I 100% in hindsight, don't blame it on, but recognize that it's because I was like super depressed and I wouldn't face it. Like I wouldn't come right out and like just accept that's where I was at, and that I needed to like deal with that more than I needed to like try to qualify for the American Open at this meet. And after I my last snatch, I was like, I'm not gonna clean and jerk. Like I didn't, it was weird. It was very weird, because you always kind of picture the first time you ever bomb out and what that's gonna be like. Like it's a big fear for every weightlifter, and I'm sure every power lifter, and like what how terrible that must feel. And I thought that I would like sink into myself and die. And I like barely cared. And it was the weirdest thing to me. And I was like, I walked out and all my teammates just kind of looked at me like, what do we do? Because I'm very emotional. Like I'm a very emotional lifter. When I'm having a bad lifting day, it's everybody's problem. I hate that I'm like that, but it's totally a thing. And I'm like pissed. When I'm having a good lifting day, like you watch any of my videos, I'm like, yeah, like I get super excited. Like I'm really into it. And it's who I am. I've tried to change it. It's not happening at this point. But So when I bombed, I always assumed I would like bawl my eyes out and have a whole scene about it. But I literally just like walked out and I took a second and I was like sitting there, like trying to make myself cry almost. And it was weird because I just didn't care. And then I like walked out to meet my coach and he's like, what's going on with you? And he's like, are you okay? Like, are you upset? And I was like, Jay, I feel empty. Like, I feel empty and I don't feel like myself. And he's like, I feel like you haven't felt like yourself for the past like month and a half. And he was like, are you like, okay? Are you talking to someone and stuff like that? So I think, I mean, there have been times in the past where I've like, I'll tell him things about my life because they impact weightlifting. Like, if I don't know, if you're going through something stressful at work and things like that, and we'll talk about like what other factors are limiting your time. But one thing we really started doing over the past like year is actually having a conversation about what things are like limiting your energy and like my mental capacity, because I don't think he realized how big of a role like depression and anxiety played in how I perform here. Because that whole cycle, I was like, I don't even care. I don't even care. I don't even care. And like going into the meet, I felt so empty and so much like I didn't care that I didn't have the fire when I stepped out there to actually pick up the barbell. It was just like this vast emptiness that like, I was like, I just want to get this over with. And I've never felt like that at a meet. And so we've spent a lot of time talking about that and how that affects my lifting and like trying to like figure out the best way to, when things like that come up, the best way to like work around it or to work through it without like making it worse. Because honestly, then bombing out made it worse because I was like, why am I even doing this? You know what I mean? It like, and of course, I mean, that's dramatic to be like, why am I even weightlifting? Because I bombed out of one meet. But like, if you've struggled with depression or any sort of anxiety, it's like you literally, for me personally, I just feel pointless. Like I feel like nothing I'm doing matters and like my life doesn't matter. So when I get to a point where I have to try and have to care about something, it's like really difficult to do that, even with weightlifting, which is the thing that like lights me up the most.
I really appreciate the fucking honesty. Like it's a really hard and weird topic to talk about, especially on a stranger on a screen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's kind of odd. But I really appreciate that, and your coach did really well. Like at the end of the day, like us as coaches are learning through this too, right? And you touched on a really, really important thing, and I think it was one of the first episodes I ever recorded, which was just me and myself.
Yep.
Is like is like the difference between a coach and a trainer, and like kind of showing the differences and be like, listen, man, if you want to get into coaching and this is something that you want to do, like it's the fucking mental health of the athlete before the physical health of the athlete.
For
Like
sure.
that's it. And whether that is going for the American Open or whether that is like competing in a technical sport like weightlifting, or if that is like just seeing someone that comes through the gym 3 times a week, you know what I mean? It's like if they're mentally not okay, like it's your job, man. Like you signed up on that dotted line, you're gonna have to talk to them. And it's a big minefield to be able to walk
For
through.
sure.
And you've got to be able to develop that trust, but it is so important. Like, you know, physical illness can kill you in 30 years, but mental illness can kill you in 30 seconds. So which one should we prioritize right now in this second? It's probably leveling someone's head out so then they don't leave this institute and go swing themselves from a noose. You know what I mean? It's like, well, let's talk to them. Let's fucking calm them down. Let's level them. Let's hear them. Like, a lot of the time it's just like, just talk. Like it doesn't have to make any sense, you know? And it's a funny one because it's where do you draw the line? It's like, where does your job stop and where does a counselor come in? And
Right.
that is something I have no answer to. I have no idea. But at the same time, like if you genuinely care, you've got to listen to them.
Yeah. And I think like, you know, Jay and I have a very professional coach athlete relationship. Like I said, anytime I'm going through something, whether I'm like going through a work thing, like have a lot going on my plate at work, or I'm going through a breakup or whatever. Like last year I had a big surgery. Obviously I couldn't lift for months after it. He like helped me like come back from that, but it's never from a lens of like, I'm never like venting to him. It's never that sort of thing. I feel like I could if I needed to, but I don't pay my coach so I can vent to him. But I have to tell him what's going on in my life so that he can program for me successfully. And I think the way that we are going to continue to look at what happens with my mental health is going to be similar, from a similar lens. And I think there's a way to do it professionally, because he said to me at the time, I'm here if you need anything, but I think you need to go see someone. And I think for the next couple of weeks, he spent time, like, I don't want to say babying me, but kind of like approaching weightlifting in a different way. And he kind of like took my programming and had to like rebuild my confidence. You know what I mean? And now I'm like the other day I PR'd yesterday I PR'd my double. Like I didn't think I was going to get back to that place from where I was a month and a half ago or whatever, 2 months ago. But like he maybe isn't necessarily the person I go to when I'm in my like depth of low, but he basically in that moment said to me, like, if this is going to affect your weightlifting, I care about you first as a person. And I also have to care about you as an athlete. And I need you to be communicative with me. And you need to know that I'm not going to push you harder when you're in that part of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's important too. And I think that there's an important delineation, like depending on what your relationship with your athlete is, you have to know your place in their life. And like, he is outspoken about mental health, and he will first and foremost say like, go get help if you need the help, sort of thing.
Yeah. And you are a person first, right? It's not just sacrifice everything for a kilo. Like there's a time and a place to do that. You know, competition is a crazy thing. People get hyped up on caffeine and sugar and all that type of stuff. Probably way too much ibuprofen in the system. It's like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. But at the end of the day, like that's not even 1% of the year, right? Is on a platform.
Right.
Like the amount of training we do to do 6 lifts. That's it. That's what you're gonna get.
It's so insane. It's so insane. And when you think about it, because like you said, you played rugby, so I'm assuming the season was similar. You have like whatever, a few months span of a season, and practice every week in games. If you have a shitty game, just come back at this time, you're like, dude, I'm literally so if you bomb out or if you do poorly, there's no next week to make up for it. You have to go another 4 months before you have time to prove yourself again.
Yeah, and you're not allowed to touch the heavy weights for a while, and it's like, motherfucker, just let me do it again. You're like, nah, man, you've got, like you said, 4 months. Like, think about that for the next 4 months. It's rough, man. I mean, I'm preaching to the converted here, but it's absolutely rough. Yeah, I used to play like at least 2 games a week. Could I play for 2 different teams? Like, so it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Like, okay. We kind of like lost, or I wasn't on top of my game, whatever. Like I'm playing 2 days later or next week. It's fine. We can kind of go again. And with the barbell, it's a bit harder.
I think too, like there's that thing, like I think in my last cycle where and the thing is, in hindsight, I knew where I was at mentally, and I just tried to push through it. I did also have a lot going on at work. I'm a leader in my company, and we were going through a huge transition, and it was super stressful. So I was like, I literally don't have time to pay attention to the fact that I'm wicked depressed right now. And it is this thing that like, I feel like we live in this world that, and it's really frustrating as a person who's always struggled with depression. And when you say it, you sound like you're whining. Or I feel like when I tell people that, they look at me like, oh, I'm sorry. And I'm like, I'm not sad. I'm not a sad person. I'm one of the happiest people I know. I love my life. And that's the thing. So when I get depressed, it's unfortunate because it's not a reflection on like how I feel about the people around me. It's not a reflection on like my satisfaction with my life, with my job, with my sport. But we kind of live in this world where like we're like, it's not an excuse to stop. Like if I was like, hey, I have the flu, everyone would be like, oh, stay home from work for 5 days and don't work out. And that would be the thing. But when I'm like, hey, I'm like really depressed right now, it'd be like, well, you can work through that. And it's like, no, I can't. I want to sit in my room and like cry for 5 straight days every time. Like I want to seclude from everything I'm doing. I don't want to see anyone. I don't want to eat. I don't want to get up. And it's like, it makes you physically sick. Like I don't think people realize like how difficult it is to eat when you're super depressed. And when I'm sitting there force feeding myself because I have to weight lift, it's like, it almost makes it worse. It's like, I hate every bite I'm taking, or I get like sick and I'll have like stomach aches, or I'll throw up, or I'll get headaches. And it's so weird how much it like affects your physical body to be depressed. And I don't think that people that don't deal with it that way realize that it's not just your brain. It's like your brain is attacking you. It's like your emotions are just attacking you. And it's like creating a physical sickness out of what feels like nothing. Mm-hmm. And it's like, the world isn't structured so that that's an acceptable reason to take a day. Like I feel guilty taking a day off. I literally, when I've had this happen before and I've decided I really needed a break from work that day, I've like lied and said that I had something going on, because it's not acceptable to say I need a mental health day.
Yep.
Which is so mind blowing to me.
I've been there, mate. Like it's fucked up. Like there's no other way to describe it. It's completely fucked up, and it's hard. I can see it from their side, right? It's hard to understand simply because if they've never ever experienced it or felt it before, like you can't really put your finger on it. You're like, oh well, I don't really know what this thing is, but I know it's around because I'm being told it's around, but I don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna be half skeptical about it, which I understand. Right. I'm like, okay, cool. Like that's your side, wicked. But because you believe that doesn't mean like no one's going through it. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like it's a minefield.
I think it's, yeah. And I think it's important to like keep having conversations about it though, because there's a lot of people in my life that don't experience it. I'm lucky enough, which I hate it for her, but I have one of my best friends here. I've trained with her for years. She's unfortunately been injured for like a year and a half. She has this terrible back thing, but she's an incredible athlete. Her depression and her anxiety are weirdly similar to mine. Like the way we experience it is like exactly the same. And I always know when she's going through it, and she always knows when I'm going through it. And I feel very lucky to have someone that I can like, that just gets me. So like, I don't know. I feel like I don't have to vent to her about it, but I feel like I can lean on her about it. And we are both lucky that our team is incredible. Like my team, other people on my team don't necessarily experience it or understand it, but I feel like they all know when we're going through something or when I'm going through something. And I feel like I can like just come to them and feel like, especially when I'm out here and I don't have my family here, like I feel like I'm at home with them. Like I feel like they help me and they check in on me, and they have learned and I feel like they've all purposely learned over the last few years, like what are the right things to say, what should I be looking for, what should I be asking. And I feel like it's important, the onus is kind of on you as the person who has depression or has anxiety to educate the people around you that don't understand it on this is what happens when I'm going through this. This is how I feel. This is what I need from you when I'm going through this. Because when you're in a low phase, it's harder to communicate your needs. So when you are coming out of that, you can say, for being there for me, this what would have helped this. And I didn't recognize her that asked me a lot is like the people that are closest to me, especially my team. And now even my coach, just telling them like, hey, this is what I'm going through. And even like when I recognize it myself, like I realized it when I recently realized it, like I was like, oh, because it's weird. It's funny how you say it, like how I'm saying it. I mean, like I realized it. you're all of a sudden just in this weird fog state of mind. And then you're like, oh, fuck, I think I'm depressed. And it's so weird how it just comes on that way. And so I kind of just like tell my team that I'm like, I've just been not feeling well. I've not been feeling myself. Or sometimes I'll come out right and say it and just be like, I'm super depressed right now. And it's just difficult. And they all just kind of join around me and make me feel a lot better about it and a lot more supported through it. So that even when I'm like in the depths of it, I don't feel alone. I don't feel as alone as it can feel when you actually don't communicate those things, you know?
That's absolutely beautiful that you can come out and say that, you know what I mean? And that's the environment that we need to forge in society, full stop. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, how are you doing right now? It's like, honestly, like real fucked. But
Yeah,
we're kind of getting on and doing shit and kind of, you know, keeping the wheel going. It's like, well, first of all, that's really commendable that things are still going, right? You're still plugging on. But second of all, like let's take some time for you. What do you need? Like how
you broke up again.
Oh, can you hear me?
Alex.
Hello. Technical difficulties. Here we go. Steph.
Hey, yep, I can hear you.
Hey, boss. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Can't see you though. Hey.
Oh, it's coming on.
Yep.
Must be some crazy weather going on. I am in the middle of buttfuck nowhere, so I don't think that helps.
I'm sure not.
No. Here's a point. So something that I've been playing around with recently, right? Is so
yep.
we're coaching a while, and I used to just turn around and be like, yep, I'm sound, blah blah blah. Don't worry about me, type shit. But now I've been kind of just displaying a little bit of honesty to people that ask, right? So if they don't ask, I'm not going to throw it in their face because some people don't give a fuck. That's fine. But if they're like, oh, like, how are you doing? I'm like, well, you know, naturally, my mental state is quite depressed. It operates on a very low frequency, and I just need to manage that. Like that's cool. Like I'm a very introverted person, and I'll do things to fill my cup back up. So then I can then go give it to other people, because giving it to other people provides me with a purpose, and having a purpose steers me away from very dark times. You know what I mean? So I've started being super, super honest. Like, cool, you asked me a question, I'm going to give you the fucking answer straight. And I've like,
don't ask then.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been I've just been keeping an eye on what the members, like people that come in and ask for you for support, right, and a little bit of leadership. And I've keeping an eye on what they've been doing, and honestly, it's so much more positive than it is negative. Like, at the start, it seems like, oh, they're gonna think I'm some sort of like crazy person. And first of all, I am nuts, and which is fine. You know, like with a full moon, it sends me fucking crazy. So that's, you know, that's non-negotiable. I am fucking mental. But we're blonde, right? We are just crazy people.
Yep.
But like, they appreciate the honesty.
Yeah.
And the humanity.
I feel like that's true. And I feel like, so there's this big push now to be like, you know, mental health needs to be more accepted. And like, I just, you know, kind of complained to you, it should be more accepted for me to take a mental health day. But like, no one who doesn't have mental health issues is going to give you that. That's the thing. Nobody who doesn't have mental health issues is going to recognize the signs of you going through it unless you educate people for it. So I guarantee you that if I went to my boss and was like, this has been a lot this year, I need a break, I'm going to burn out, he'd be like, okay, go take a break. I guarantee it. But for whatever reason, I'm uncomfortable doing that. But what we all need to do as people who struggle with these things is like tell our coaches, tell our teams that this is what we're going through, because at the end of the day, like you're saying, like people appreciate the honesty, and they're not going to think you're crazy. They're going to think you're strong for being able to open up about it. And you don't have to go in there and be like, I thought about killing myself last night. That's not what you have to do. But you can go in and be like, I'm not okay right now, and your support means a lot to me. So the next couple weeks is going to be hard. Like, that's it. Like, that's all. Or even like you're saying, like, yeah, I'm naturally just not doing well right now. And people will like have that conversation with you. And do you know how many people have responded back to me saying, anytime that like I said, I have a hard time sharing about my mental health on social media because I don't really know how to approach it or how much people care. But anytime that I've ever even wrote the word anxiety in a story, the number of people that have responded and been like, I struggle with this too. Thank you so much for talking about it. And I'm barely even talking about it. It's like, the more that people talk about it, the more people will realize it's normal and it's okay to deal with. And that there's more than just you, and you're not alone. And there's other people that want to go through this with you because they don't want to be alone either.
Yeah, like I'm pretty sure the first post I ever saw that you post was something along those lines. And I was like, okay, yeah, spot on. This is definitely something I want to get on board with. You know what I mean? I found another crazy, simply because it's like, oh, well, that's some like honesty, you know, like
Yeah.
you're respecting the kind of communication platform that you've created, and other people then invest in you and all that type of stuff with some honesty. And I'm like, I definitely respect that. So 100%.
Mhm.
Plus I relate to it like 100% of the way.
Yeah. And in the past, I had just like taken breaks instead, but I've recently just been like, I feel like I should talk about it a little bit more because, like, I remember a couple years ago, I don't even remember what I was going through, but I was just like in a bad place. I was in a bad place, and I had been like, it was kind of right when I started getting any sort of following, and I was like posting a lot. So I felt like I had to say, like, I'm not going to be on here for like 3 months. And I took like a 3-month break from Instagram. And I think part of it for me was because I started doing the thing, and everybody does it to some extent, but I was doing it way more than I needed to. I was like comparing myself to other people, and like comparison is just the thief of joy. Like, anytime you accomplish something, there's going to be someone who accomplished something more. So don't worry about that person. Just relish in your accomplishment. Just love it. Like, own it. Be happy about it. Who gives a shit if someone got 1 kilo more? You know what I mean? And or anytime you have a failure, then sit there and sit in the failure. Learn from the failure. Don't be like, well, that girl got it. Like, and I was doing that a lot at the time. So I think I just like significant myself a lot and just do that and just get quiet and not tell people what I was going through. When off social media for a while, because like, this is too much. Well, I'm scared people are gonna am not lifting after ever. In reality, I kind of wish I shared more about. I couldn't even like walk on my own for like 12 weeks. So that was obviously one of the darkest times I ever went through. And I feel like if I had like opened that part of my life up a little bit more, I would have felt a lot more supported and realized, because after when I talked about it, people were like, oh my God, I can't believe you went through that, and like offered support. And at the time I was just like going through it in my own head with the people sitting next to me, when there was like hundreds of other people that probably went through the same surgery or had a similar experience that I wasn't like giving the opportunity to share that with, you know?
And like, you know, social media has provided that platform to be able to connect with people on the other side of the world that, like we said, you're never even going to bump into. So, and like, I don't know, I say share, don't compare. You know, like you said, comparison is the thief of all joy. Like, and share what you want. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to share a story that you don't want other people to know. That's sound. But honestly, people aren't that different. Like, travel
No.
has highlighted that to me. Like, coming over to the other side of the world, like, people are really not that different. Like, I'm in a city, right, with 300,000 people, which is fucking nothing. And I'm from legit, and I'm from like Manchester, right, inner city Manchester. So there's a lot of farms around here at the moment. You know, people are very rural minded. and I'm very urban minded. So that's one, comparison. There's a lot of Pacifica around, from Samoa, Fiji, Tonga. I'm obviously the whitest person you can meet.
I was gonna say.
Blonde hair, blue eyed, and blend in with an A4 piece of paper. I'm literally camouflaged. But the struggles are the same. So I'm like, right, we like to define ourselves in all these boxes and categories and all this, but quite frankly, those definitions mean fuck all, because we are all the same.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that. My training partner, you probably see me tag him. I'm wearing his shirt right now, Rytown USA. He's like a 43-year-old Filipino dude with 3 kids and a wife, and like we couldn't have led more different lives until the moment we met. Like we are completely like cut from a different cloth completely. But he's literally like my best friend, my training partner. He's my family. Like he's like, him and his wife like totally act as my family here. They feel like my family here. And it's so funny because people will like, he's really funny. He posts like really funny things, like he makes like these really funny videos, and like he's quick-witted and things like that. So people will always see our videos and they're like, you guys have such a funny banter. Like, how did you guys even come across each other? And I'm like, yeah, just in a gym. And it really is so interesting. We're coming up on 7 years of being training partners.
Wow.
And it is so true what you're saying. Like we couldn't be so different, but we are so similar when we're together. Like we just like bounce off each other, and like, and even still, like we believe things very differently about the world. Like we have very different guides and things like that. Like he's like super Catholic and things, and I'm like totally not into that at all, and like have a totally different belief system that drives me. And then we probably think really differently politically. And again, like we just have had this totally different life perspective, but we connect so well. And all of the things that make us different help us grow and understand other people way more. Yeah, you backing off what you're saying, like different on a mission, and naturally, even when you're just looking at sets of data, your brain is naturally trying to find comparison so that you can make something the same. And that's all we're ever doing, is trying to connect with each other. And I mean, social media is really cool for that reason. It can be really stressful. It can be hard, but it is really cool for that reason. We get to find similarities with people that live all the way across the world, and some that are like right next to us. Yeah.
Yeah, nah, totally. Like that's absolutely beautiful. Social media can feel like a job at times, and sometimes it is, but like just being able to connect with people even for 10 minutes or less than, you know what I mean? Like it's a beautiful thing.
For sure.
It is literally turned into a fucking storm, so I'm gonna cut it early in case I get booted out. But mate, I would be really, really buzzing to continue this conversation on if you want to share another coffee and a chat.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, it was so great connecting with you. I really respect what you're doing. I love your platform. I'd be happy to chat more at any time. And I hope that this storm doesn't take you out too bad.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the gym's roof that I coach at is not the greatest. We'll put it that way.
Oh no.
So I'm going to be running around with buckets all day, but hey, it is what it is.
You could live in San Diego. The weather's always perfect here.
But I would be burnt to a crisp.
Yeah. Yep. It's definitely tough being as white as I am.
Yeah, I need to be in the snow. Definitely. I'll blend in though. Right. We'll get the second conversation scheduled in. Again. Oh. Hello?
Yep. No, you're good. You cut out for a second, but you're back.
Oh, sorry. Right.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you very much for your time. Like,
thank you so much.
It's an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, this was a pleasure. Thank you so much again. We'll talk soon, okay?
Okay, boss. See you later.
Bye.